Do you want to find out a little bit more about being healthier and happier? Are you interested in improving your general fitness for performance in dog sports? If so, join me in today's conversation with Chris Kerton, Team GB coach and member of the team himself with his own dog, to find out a little bit more about what he has to offer and his journey into dog sports. Okay, so hi, Kurt. How are you? How are you keeping?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thank you for having me on today.
Our pleasure, as always. I think we've done one of these before, so it's good to catch up and what have you. How have you been? You've come off the cusp of just making up your first agility champion, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, we were just chatting about that when yeah, it was a bit ahead of schedule, as I said, but obviously really pleased. Yeah,
Yeah. So your main thing that you do now is agility. But you've actually had a relatively short time in agility. So just for people that don't know, you give us the amended bio of who and what you are.
well, yeah. So as Kamal said, my name's Chris Kerton, but people call me Kurt. I actually would find it strange for someone to call me Chris. I think I am essentially I would say a strength and conditioning coach, but definitely leaning towards more on health and fitness now, health and wellness and feeling good. And I run Karma Fitness, which is at the moment helping people in agility feel better in everyday life and hopefully be able to then compete a little bit better in agility. I like Kamal said as well, I compete in agility myself. I like to say I got roped into it through my wife. She tricked me into being competitive in agility. It used to be her thing. She always trained our dogs, and I kind of went off and did my own thing. But then when she fell pregnant with our son, Oshan, I ran the dogs to keep them fit, and I was frustrated at how bad I was, and that's kind of what got me hooked, I guess.
Oh, so technically, it's your son's fault, really.
Oh, yeah, true.
Blame
True,
him.
yeah.
So you stumbled into the world of agility, and it's very much now your passion. So tell people what you currently do then, because obviously you've got several roles. You are in terms of your day job was what you do, but actually do something quite integral to agility in this country. So just tell us a little bit about that.
So officially now, I'm not the GB handler fitness coach, but for many years I was. And I had, yeah, my role was on the management team as helping the people in GB, the team try and stay at a level or try and take them to a level that they can be as competitive as possible. Obviously, once I got to a point that I was able to compete in the team myself, we thought that it would be best and kind of more fair if I stepped down from the management, because obviously I think I would be seen as having an unfair advantage if I was on the management and trying out for the team. So at the point that I became eligible through results, I guess, to be on the team, I took the decision to kind of step away from that role officially, but obviously still have a hand and help lots of people in the team. But yeah, my main job is Karma Fitness. And whilst I work with people at GB level, the majority of my work is with everyone. That we call it Gen Pop uh, in the area that I'm in, but it's basically anyone and everyone who wants to start looking after themselves a bit.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, on the note of fitness, certainly for agility, agility is a sport that's grown astronomically, I'd say, over the years. It's gone from being a sport that sort of, I don't, whilst there was some running, but it wasn't perceived as necessarily a sport as such, but it's very much now an athletic, there is an athleticism to it, I would say. However, I would also say that there is a lot of diversity within the sport. So the misconception that you need to be, built like a racing whippet and run 100 miles per hour isn't necessarily the case for the people that compete at mass. So can you just talk about your thoughts about that a little bit then, Kurt?
Well, I agree with you firstly. I mean, ultimately the dog is the main part of the partnership, because if the dog doesn't do what you ask it to do in the competition, you're not going to do, doesn't matter how fast you are at that point, does it? So, I mean, yeah, it's a partnership, but the dog plays the main part.
Mhm.
My argument with people who say, oh, you don't need to be fit, I would say I agree with you. You can still compete at the highest level without being fit,
Mhm.
but it will never ever hurt your chances.
Yeah.
Because you know what it's like as well. And like from a training point of view, as soon as you start adding distance, as soon as you start adding speed into any behavior, it becomes a case of the behavior has to be stronger, has to be better trained. And then you've got all the distractions that are on the course. You've got the extra arousal of the situation of being in a competition. So yes, you can definitely train a dog and you can be very successful doing things from a distance. But I also think it's super helpful to do as much as you can from a handling point of view to have to rely on the training less. But the biggest advantage I think in keeping fit is through things in everyday life. You know, the the carryover into everyday life, having, you know, I know I'm speaking to someone who's kind of, you know, I'm preaching to the choir as such, but the physical benefits are fairly obvious. You know, you get
Yeah.
stronger, you get more
Yeah.
mobile,
Yeah.
you get more strength. But I think for me, and this is something that I know a lot of people who work with me regularly will agree on, is like I'm big into the mental side of it,
Yeah.
like building belief in yourself,
Yeah.
building confidence, resilience,
Yeah.
and it energizes you from a point of view. Like I know it kind of sounds counterintuitive in the sense that like you train, you think you're going to be more tired, but it definitely brings definitely a renewed vigor, should we say, to your day every time. And I think the health benefits of training are far more important to me than the performance benefits, because, you know,
Absolutely.
ultimately we're all in a sport that we love, whether it be obedience, whether it be agility, and like training to help yourself become healthier and fitter is going to ensure longevity in the sport. And I think that's what we all want, really, isn't it? Is to be able to compete and be with our friends on the social side of things and then the competitive side of things for as long as possible. And I think that's kind of where my emphasis leans, definitely.
Yeah, and you know what? I think so. The conversation really with Kurt, because I've spoken to Kurt obviously in various episodes of Lifting All Ships, but this stems from really opening up the conversation more away from physical well-being solely, because obviously that's the priority. You know, I prioritize my physical health and well-being and fitness on a regular basis. It's part of almost of how I have always been, having done martial arts and athletics throughout my whole life, and similar with obviously Kurt comes from a sporting background. But if I'm truthful, I don't think that's probably the greater benefit beyond physical health is actually down to mental health. And I
Yeah.
would say that the conversations about mental health in society, in our sports, is probably the one that needs to be more addressed, really, and more talked to candidly about. And I would say that for me personally, I would say that physical activity and physical training has been more beneficial to my mental health than it probably has to my physical health. And I would say, both from a competitive point of view and a well-being point of view, I would say that physical activity has absolutely saved me on numerous occasions. What's your take on that and your experience with that then, Kurt?
Well, again, you're spot on. It's not even at this point anecdotal. You know, there is proof to show that one way to help, let's generalize all, because there's lots of different things that could go into mental health. You know, anxiety, depression. There's numerous things, and across the board, almost exercise has been shown to be one of those things that can help. And I know it's not just as simple as saying just go and exercise, because obviously sometimes whatever someone is experiencing doesn't allow for that. But what I encourage people is, so there's a couple of ways that I think people get stuck on it. And one of the bad things, there's lots of good things about social media, but one of the bad things about social media is how sensationalized it is with regards to exercise, and everything has to be as heavy as possible or as fast as possible, or you have to kill yourself every session. And it, you know, that's really off-putting. It's such a barrier of entry to so many people, when it is almost the exact thing of what exercise and health and fitness should be. You know, it should be welcoming to everyone, and it should be an encouraging situation, an encouraging platform, or an encouraging place for people to go to feel better about themselves. And I think that needs to be talked about more, is the damage that the perception of what fitness is. Um, it's not what I don't want to say it's not what it used to be, because for a lot of people it still is. But I think the issue with social media is it's pushed it so far to one end of the spectrum. Those are the things that are getting engagement. That is the thing that is being pushed to the front, that everyone is seeing. And it is so off-putting for people, because the people who need exercise, the people who need to start prioritizing themselves now, feel so far away from
Yeah,
what they're seeing as being the picture of fitness, that
yeah,
they think, well, I can never achieve that. And like, I am genuinely really passionate about it. I mean, I'm sure you can kind of tell by the way that I'm talking, but it frustrates me immensely,
mhm,
uh, the things that people show on social media as being normal when it just isn't. And so one of the things that we always talk about with Karma Fitness is doing what you can, right? And everyone thinks of that as like, oh, do your best. And it kind of has become a cliched throwaway comment almost now. But if you can actually strip away everything and just think about what it ultimately means, is it does not matter how fit you are. It does not matter how mobile you are. It does not matter anything. All that matters is if you turn up for any session, you do what you can.
mhm,
You're not expected to do a certain weight. You're not
mhm,
expected to do a certain range of motion. You turn up, you
mhm,
do what you can that is as close to what you're being asked to do as possible, and it's job done. You're going to feel better for it. And if you keep showing up and you keep doing just what you can and no more, you don't compare yourself to anyone, then eventually you're going to get better. Because this false perception that social media has also brought is that results come overnight, when
mhm.
really it's the same as dog training. Like, this is a great analogy for people who are going to listen to this podcast, because they're all going to understand, if you want to train a behavior and proof it against many, many things, it doesn't happen in one session.
Yeah,
It takes lots of layered, considered work. And ultimately, you're going to get the strongest behavior after you've put consistent time and effort into it. And that's the same with fitness. But if you're too scared to ever start, you've got two options, haven't you? And this is again, this is something I've definitely said before, because it's the one thing that really rings true with me. People who are thinking about it now and they're thinking, oh, maybe, I don't know. Well, you've got two options. You either give it a go and you just go and do what you can, and you keep showing up and you keep doing what you can. Then in a year's time, through all that consistent work, you're going to look back and not recognize yourself. And
mhm,
you're going to not be able to believe
mhm.
who you used to be almost, right? Or you can be like, no, actually, it's not for me. I don't want to be more awesome. I'm
Yeah,
going to stay as I am. And then this time in a year's time, you're going to look back and you're going to be in the exact same place. So you're definitely not going to gain anything. And for me, that's what I want to encourage people to do, whether it be with me or whether it be finding something that just gets them active. That's what it's about. It's just getting out there, getting on with something, because something is immeasurably better than doing nothing.
yeah. You mentioned a couple of things, so I'd say just to expand on it. One, I would say that people's reluctance to do physical exercise is the mental barriers. So one, you've talked about several. One is definitely the perception of social media, imagery of people looking really svelte and lean and having a six pack, etc. You know, they're saying, "Hey, this is I've lifted the dumbbell 3 times and this is what happened." No, that's is one. It's a fallacy. So it's being able to discern between what is marketing versus what is reality, as I think something to bear in mind. And the other thing is which is a phrase that you use in Karma Fitness and your community a lot, which is comparison is the thief of joy. Your journey is your journey. I think what often happens, people are deterred with trying to compare themselves, and I think this is applicable in dog sports,
Yeah,
of comparing
100%.
themselves with other people and their where they're at. And I think that's something that is quite toxic in social media, on social media, and is also, I would say, quite toxic in it. Specifically, I talk to agility about it. I think that happens quite a lot in terms of you see people always post their videos of their dogs on training days, and people with siblings start to get
Okay.
aware of, all so and so's Kurt's dog's doing XY, and rather than just focusing on their journey, running their own race, and working at being the best version of themselves, it deters them, it puts pressure on themselves, and I'd say that is another contributing factor. And the other thing is fear of, which I would say you're really good at of negating, is the fear of judgment, and also somebody turning up that doesn't fit the mold of what a fit athletic person is. Your community definitely embraces that. So where does that stem from you as an individual? I mean, if anybody met you, obviously you're clearly somebody that's invested in physical fitness. You and Amy are, you're that's your job, that's what you do, you live and breathe it. So why would I then come to you and say, Kurt, why would you be able to relate to somebody that, like myself, that doesn't, or as an example, somebody that doesn't have that physical appearance, or that perception, or whatever it might be? Where does that come from, that you are able to relate to them? Is it from a personal point of view, or what really?
I think it was a couple of things, honestly. One of the things certainly stands out as a moment, and it's something that I can remember. And there's a lot of stuff I can't remember from when I was. So I used to compete at quite a high level in triathlon as in my younger years, not for a while. And I used to train with someone who was an Olympic level, and he was elite, top of the top. He'd been to the Olympics a couple of times. He was a top level competitor. And I remember we were out on just a run on the road, and at this point I was young, so I was like maybe 16, I suppose, quite young. And I remember that we were kind of, we were high level, we were going pretty quick, and kind of on the other side of the road, there were people who weren't necessarily at the level that we were at. Okay. Now, one of the people in our group made a remark, and I'd never seen, I don't want to name him
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I don't feel like there's any need,
yeah.
but I'd never seen this high level athlete get angry before. And he stopped the run in the middle of the tempo effort, and he absolutely ripped this guy apart.
No.
And it actually, I'm thinking about it now, and I didn't really realize how much of an effect it had on me. It actually is kind of like making me a bit emotional, because the way that he was talking about it, he kind of just put things into perspective. Um, you know, we were in a certain level, and I think the perception from the person who said it, it wasn't meant in a nasty way.
Mhm,
Um, but it was said from a place of thinking he was better, I suppose.
mhm,
And yeah, he just tore him apart. He said, you've got those people over there are doing the same thing as you. For you to say something like that shows how incredibly unaware you are of who you are.
mhm,
You should be the person who are lifting those up,
mhm,
and being that example of someone who is fortunate enough to have always had an eye on their health and fitness.
mhm,
You're ahead of those,
mhm,
and you're trying to punch down.
mhm,
And yeah, it was, like I said, I genuinely didn't really think how much it affected me, but um, yeah, it was just, that's really always stuck with me, that I am fortunate that I've always had my health and fitness, and it is always something I have prioritized. And I think it's just a message that I kind of want to pass on. It's like the benefits that you get from it far outweigh the negatives. And I understand there are stumbling blocks, and there are things that stop that barrier of entry. But, if I'm in a position that I can tell people how important it is, I want to include people in it. I don't want to push people away. And the other time in my life that really helped cement that, it's you you base your opinion of someone on their character, not on who they are. And yeah, it's just my family who I grew up with. It was always a case of, it's when people say, "Oh, you should respect so and so." Well, no, I don't agree with that. I'll always be courteous and I'll always, you know, be fine to someone, but you have to earn respect. If you just give your respect away, then it doesn't really mean anything.
Mhm.
But it was always taught to me that you kind of have to, you base your opinion on someone on your own experience, and you treat them as who they are, not who they appear to be. So they're based on character. And that's why, for me, anyone who comes to me and asks for help, I'm more than happy to give it. I'd never judge anyone on anything like that. And that's the one thing that I will definitely say is a brilliant part of the academy
Mhm.
is it's really it's a helpful place, and it's a very positive place. And anything, I have turned people away and asked people to leave, and kind of when they just weren't the type of characters that I thought would benefit. So yeah, I think never really thought about that before, to be honest. And yeah, I think that's where it's come from, really.
That's really interesting. It's interesting that it still can emote you when you talk about it, because I think we've all had that experience, and I think it shapes who we are. And certainly, you know, I can think of certain similar things where it's molded certainly my character. But the big thing that I also, when you said that, was um, the perception of, like, for example, I don't know whether you had this, but I was the perception of somebody that, like, you know, you know, like you, I've had the advantage of always having fitness and health as a part of who I am in my DNA. But the perception was for a long time is, and again, it was a real thing that I had to break through. Was I was always the skinny kid. I could never put weight on, and I see it's ironic that my daughter's the same. She has exactly the same body type as me, and skinny, really, really, and it was, oh, the skinny kid, and all that sort of stuff. And that really, and as much as the misconception I think about, say, body appearance is that we could all have our stuff. You know, I know a couple of really good friends of ours have the similar sort of experience. You know, of the perception being that, you know, they don't fit, and that can then get in your mindset, and it can get in your psyche. And the same could be people that have been that have struggled with weight. And I think what we don't always have an understanding or passion, compassion for is we are all doing our own, we're trying to do the best that we can, and I think all of us have our stuff that we bring to the table, and the hope is that we have compassion for our peers. And I'd say certainly when it comes to fitness and health, you know, the misconception is that because I've always been invested in my health, my fitness and health, doesn't mean that I don't all struggle with my own physical appearance. It's the same stuff. It's just a different narrative. It might be different. Oh, you're too skinny and you're always skinny, etc. That's just the same conversation I have with myself internally that other people might have about their weight gain. So it's all relative. But I think the big thing that you bring to the table, certainly on your community, is you very much cultivate a very safe space where there isn't, whilst you have coached elite level competitors and been in that realm, that's not what comes across. And it's so interesting as to where that mindset probably comes from experiences like that.
Yeah, well, it goes back to the thing that um, the only thing that no, I shouldn't say the only thing, but the one thing that I would say is most highly appreciated in my community is not PBs, it's not lifting certain amounts, not run, it's effort. That's
Mm.
it. Because the
Yeah.
only thing that I care about is effort. And if someone shows me that they're going to put the effort in, I
Mm.
don't care about the results because it's process driven. If they keep showing up and they keep putting the efforts in,
Mm.
they're going to get what they need. And, you know, God, we're talking there about like each of us in our own. God, I'm fortunate that I understand how much of social media is fake.
Yeah.
And I still have body issues in the sense that like I'm always like, oh God, I wish my legs were bigger,
Yeah.
or oh, I wish my nose was smaller. Do you know what I mean? Or, you know, if I could train my nose to be smaller, that would help. But you know, this is normal. And that's the thing is it is normal to have hang-ups, but it's kind of what makes you you, right? And the strength is in understanding that you can do something about it. Not going to be easy, but that is why it's going to be worth it ultimately, because you know, if you stick to it and you put the effort in, you you will make the changes that you want to do, and hopefully, you know, being in a whatever situation you end up being, whether you join a local gym, whether you join Karma Fitness, whether you join a running club,
Yeah.
you can go there and you can hopefully lean on these people who are more experienced than you, and they can help you get to where you want to be, whatever that might be, whether it be performance based, whether it be health and wellness, whether it, whatever the case may be, there are always people that can help. And I just think, I just wish that was more the message that was given, rather than you'll never be like me, which is
Yeah.
kind of what social media tries to show. They show the most ridiculous genetic outliers, or they show like, and I'm not taking anything from these people. They're incredible athletes. The things that they can do is insane, but that's not normal.
Yeah.
And I think that's what needs to be understood, is that what they're doing is incredible. And yeah, fine, I applaud it. Some of the stuff they do is incredible,
Yeah.
but some of the time it's not natural,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's certainly not normal, and it
Or
should.
what isn't always, sorry, Kurt, what isn't always appreciated or communicated is that's taken decades of
Yeah,
work.
for sure.
No, that is not the misconception that I'm I have this physical stature, I have this, this body type. It's taken me 15 years to get to that point, is the thing that isn't always communicated. Like, the obviously it's marketing to see on social media 6 weeks and you can look like this. That, unless you've got God-given genetics
No, it
or
doesn't
it's
happen
a
like
freak
that.
of nature, it's not how it works. It's going to take time. So there's 2 points that you've mentioned in other platforms and podcasts that I just want to draw on. One is about negative talk and people that you talk about putting effort in. So how, as a coach, how as a mentor, how as an individual, do you work with, help people that don't necessarily bring their effort? I'm not saying they have to be, again, trying to stress the point, this is not about elitism, but everybody can put effort in. Everybody can try. And that's what we always have our dogs. So we take it back dog training. All I ask is my dog to try. I don't care if it makes mistakes,
Yeah.
but just give it everything you've got. What do you say to people that you work with that are that aren't necessarily putting, for whatever reason, maybe it's a mental block that they've got in their head, fear of failure, anxiety, whatever it is that stops them giving 100%. What would you say to those people?
So it is it's on an individual basis, right? Because put simply, some people want the carrot, some people want the stick.
Mhm.
But ultimately, it comes down to, I guess, the type of person that I am. And hopefully, once people are in the academy, they get to understand the type of person that I am. And even if I am saying something that might come across as blunt, which can happen for sure, I try to be careful, but ultimately, sometimes being blunt is the best way.
Mhm.
Um, Hopefully, though, people understand that I do it because I care. And there's a lot of people, right? So the first thing is, like I say about effort, and effort is something that everyone is in control of themselves. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's easy to, the thing that we say is kind of throw yourself into the fire, right?
Mhm.
Because we're talking specifically about physical training here. It's not hard. It's not easy to make something uncomfortable because we all seek comfort. It's
Mhm.
literally an evolutionary process because of the years where we weren't able to find comfort so easily. It's something that now we crave intrinsically, whether we are aware of it or not. So it's quite difficult to put yourself in to put yourself willingly into a situation where you find discomfort. But the benefits in that are huge. It's the understanding of what you are actually capable of and the belief that you gain from it as well. And the more that you overcome these difficult situations, the more that you understand that you can. So it is almost learned as well. When you said, how do you like show people what effort is? It is learned. It is something that you do it once and you think, oh God, I'm actually quite proud of myself here that I've put that effort in. And you keep that is strong. That's a strong emotion, isn't it? When you feel prideful in your effort. I know you know, because I know that you have felt it before. And that in itself is a great motivator. Um, you know, that feeling of accomplishment, and it's a good way to start every day, I say. If you can get a small win and you can do something that you don't necessarily feel like doing, a common example is you do your bed. You wake up, you do your bed. Well, our example is you wake up, you do your training session. It's 20 minutes, and it might be something that would have been easier not to do, but you do it anyway, and you'll feel better for it. And yeah, it's that it is, I would say, is learnt and it's encouraged, I think, is the other thing as well. And like I say, being part of the community, you see lots of people are in the same boat as you. Maybe they don't necessarily feel like doing it, but they just do it anyway. And you're like, oh, do you know what? If so and so has done it, then well, I've got to go and do it now. And then you do it, and then you comment, and then you are that inspiration for someone else. Because, you know yourself, Kamal, motivation is great,
No,
but we're not always motivated.
no,
It's
you
usually
just,
it's
yeah,
externally influenced, isn't it? Most of the time,
absolutely.
it's set up by a song that you hear, and all of a sudden you're feeling like you could be
That's
beat up
I think
Rocky.
that's the misconception people have that people are invested in physical fitness is you go, oh, I mean, I do like exercise, I have to say, but some days it's a grind.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, just get it done. Just get those numbers in, do those reps. It's like I'm just like literally going through the motions, but where in terms of like it's just get the work done. Sometimes it's discipline over, you've got to have that level of commitment, but that really stems from having a series of little wins previously. So all
exactly.
those little wins have when that day when I have a bit where like for whatever reason I'm not in the right mental state, I'm tired, it's the bad weather, whatever. There's a reason that I could easily use to cop out or opt out. If I have that discipline of going, no, I've made that personal commitment to myself to just do whatever it is, my cardio or whatever, or hit that number, get to that, whatever it is, just tick the list, tick the box. And sometimes you do need to have that commitment, and it's a real personal commitment to go, I'm gonna make that promise to myself. Nobody's gonna judge. Like I always feel, Kurt's not gonna judge you if you don't do it, because the person that's gonna feel the benefit is yourself. And I always said, my martial arts instructor said, always used to say, and I can remember it really vividly. He said, I'm not going to make you do the work. That's down to you. But remember that when you're in when you're in a competition or you're in a big event, it's those sessions where you've cheated yourself that will come back to haunt you, so to speak. So you can do the work and you can feel better for it. And even then, if you don't succeed, at least you feel you've given it everything that you've got. And I can remember that phrase, or that said, that him having this speech to us about, I'm not going to hold a rod over your back. It's down to you, because I'm not going to be there all the time. But the time when it really matters, when like, if you're in a sprinting for that final, or you're pushing yourself for the whatever, or you're just getting up to, feel better about yourself, whatever your personal goals are, is sometimes you just got to, and like you say, being part of the community is a great way to have that moral support, I think, in the process. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the biggest strength of my personal platform is the fact that there's so many other people in there. So you can draw on their experience, and the fact that, you might think, how the hell am I not able to do this?
Mhm.
But then you go into the comment section and there's 40 other people who can't do it. And it's like, oh, okay, that's normal.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just a realistic view of what life is. And I think the important thing to kind of carry on from what you just said there is, motivation is fleeting, but it does come and it does go. And if motivation is there and you feel you're up for it, then yeah, ride the wave, right? Get in there, get the work done, feeling good, happy days. But discipline is ultimately doing the thing that you know you need to do, even if you don't want to do it. And I think that is what should be encouraged. And I think should be what is um, aimed for almost, because it is your health. Again, this is something that I say all the time, but it's just because I think it's so, so important. And I think it slips by so many people that the body that we have is the only body we've got
Absolutely.
for our whole life. And yet we're happy to kind of let it, I don't want to say, but like for your car, for example, you might take your car into a garage to get it serviced once a year. You can swap your car.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
can't swap your body, yet people aren't willing to kind of put God, I would say that if you could put 20 minutes in 3 times a week, you're going to be laughing. There's going to be such an advantage to that, especially the time that you need your health and fitness the most is when you get ill.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
when you are ill is the time that you have not got it.
And
So
I would
it's
say on that point, Kurt, it's not just physical illness. I think if you're mentally
yeah,
unwell,
yeah,
having something that you can go to, I know certainly for me, as I explained earlier in our intro, physical fitness and care has definitely been, if as much if not more beneficial to my mental well-being than I would say the physical benefits. And obviously there is physical benefits, but it's having that, sometimes, like, I always say I do my most thinking when I'm, doing a monotonous exercise. It's
yeah,
that if I can zone out. It's like some people meditate, some people
yeah,
do. I
yeah.
do exercise, and it is genuinely like monotonously running on a treadmill, or doing the whatever it is that I need. Just that monotony. Right, I've got these exercises, just got to get it done, because I know got that monotony. I can let my mind like clear itself, as it were, and that's such a massive part, certainly for me as an individual. And another thing, just to further expand on, and there's something I'm going to go back to, but the massive misconception that people have is they have to suddenly go, right, I have to be training 5 days a week for, no, 20 minutes 3 times a week is absolutely a starting point, isn't it? God, that'd be amazing, because that's an hour a week that you're committed to your own physical well-being.
Yeah, there's a quote that I read and I couldn't think of what it was, so I just went back and had to look at it now. And it's, if you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your illness.
Yeah, great
And I
one.
think that was like the one thing I was like, do you know what? Yeah, that's exactly it. Even if you're not going to do it for your sport, do it for yourself.
Mhm.
It's huge. It's huge. And like you say, three 20-minute sessions a week
Yeah.
is more than enough to make a significant difference to how you feel and everything else as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, the pandemic was a huge eye opener for us all, because I think that, whilst we initially, obviously, because the time lapse, it was, the weather was good, we had all this time, etc. But as it drifted on, I think definitely it started to take its toll on people's mental health. But I think what definitely happened is people started to do home workouts and home exercise. And obviously, I know that you were doing stuff in the background. I created Lifted All Ships. And it was our way of contributing to saying to people, look, we're all in this together. And I think that physical activity was an integral part of a lot of people getting through that period. Would you not agree?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was the exercise, but it was the coming together to,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
we're all in it together, that kind of experience that we had, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things that I did want to cover because they are the main barriers to entry that I find when I say to people, okay, so why are you not trying to do something? Because I have lots of people who will come up to me at a show and have a chat and they'll say, oh, I love what you do, love what you post, really inspirational, but I can't because. And
Yeah.
the main one that I get is they say, oh, I can't, I'm just too old. And like
Mhm.
the thing that I always say to them is, to me, you're too young to give up. You
Yeah,
you
great one.
can't be too old. You're still here.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
too young to give up. There is no too old because there is always something that you can do. And I think, yeah, you've got to find things that are suitable. But I mean, I'll just give you the example from my academy. There are definitely courses that is suitable for anyone. As long as you are able to partake in physical activity,
Mhm.
then there are courses that are suitable that
Mhm.
will enhance your quality of life significantly. And the other one is that people say they haven't got time.
Mhm.
Now, this one, I feel like it needs reframing because as well, it's not that they haven't got time, is that they're not prioritizing
Yeah.
themselves. And the people say, oh, no, no, I disagree. And I'll say, well, let me put it like this then. I've got a gun to your head. I
Mhm.
take all your dogs off you. And I say, if you don't find time to exercise 3 times this week, I'm shooting every one of your dogs. Now, I know that sounds a bit like, but what I'm saying is, if you can make it high on someone's priority list, they can guarantee you they'll find the time to do it. And like, I'm not saying time is freely available.
Yeah.
We're all busy, right? But to put your health and wellness as a low priority to me is crazy
Yeah.
because like I said, like I keep coming back to it, but it's because to me it's the most obvious thing in the world. We've got one body,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like you just need to do the things that are gonna like help you enjoy your life, that are gonna help. We're all gonna get old.
Yeah.
To make it so that when we get old we can still have a good quality of life, we need to just be doing something. We need to be ensuring that we're not losing muscle as we grow old, because that is the things that keep us active, that can keep us doing the things that we want to do, right? And it's
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I know I'm waffling on a bit, but I am
No,
genuinely
not at all,
passionate about
because
it.
yeah, I don't think that the point cannot be laboured enough, Kurt. In that, you're absolutely right. I think that again, I always get people, oh, well, where do you get the time? Where do you get the time for? I have a lot of dogs. I have a busy life. I have a daughter. And I do prioritize fitness and my physical health, because, to be honest, there's things that I am willing to sacrifice to put those things at a priority. So when I don't watch a lot of television, like I'll catch up maybe on Netflix now and again, but that isn't a priority. So I'm not gonna go and watch any soaps or anything. And I'm not judging people, to each
No,
their
it's not about that though, is it?
not, it's more a case of, why I've got X amount of hours in a day. I know these things are a priority. My dogs, my daughter, my health are priorities to me. So I slot those in. And then if I have time where I think, okay, I've got half an hour or whatever, or I'm in between something, then I can slot in like another additional activity. But again, it's about reframing in your mind, what life do you want to lead? Who do you want to be? Do you want to be a person that's healthy, has longevity, can be, like we've both got young children. I know for me, that's a massive motivator, because I want to be present for as long as I possibly can. And I want to be able to be physically active with my daughter for as long as I physically can and is possible, because nobody knows what's around the corner. And if I'm not taking ownership of my power of what I can do, I know that I can invest in my physical health. I know that I can invest in my physical well-being. So I can be active with my daughter. I can go on the climbing frames. I can do the stuff. I can, all the stuff that I want to be able to do. For me, that's a massive, massive motivator. Obviously, I dabble in agility. Agility is a motivator for you. It's a huge part of your life. It's part of your obviously your family life. It's an integral part of your work life. So it's a priority. So that motivates you. Whatever it is, whether it's a personal, some people, they just want to look a certain way. They want to feel a certain way. Whatever it is that motivates you, to just invest in yourself. That's the way I look at it. It's about investing in yourself.
Yeah, well, it's like I say, from your listeners are going to be mostly made up of people in obedience or just
Yeah,
dog training in
yeah,
general. And the thing that I would say to them is, you do these things mostly probably because you enjoy them.
yeah,
And if it's a job, then you need to be able to do your job.
yeah,
So say that those are the two reasons that you are doing the sports that you are doing, then I can guarantee you that if you can get a little bit healthier, a little bit fitter, then you're going to enjoy it
yeah,
more
yeah,
and you're going to be able to do it for longer. I tell you what, I would even go as far as saying, if any of your listeners are in the dog training community or in the obedience community and they wanted to have a go, I would open up my course for them. It's called Couch to Clean Runs, right? And it's aimed at agility people who weren't sure where to get their foot in with regards to health and wellness and fitness.
mhm,
But it's essentially a course that is about finding the foundation, the foundations in health and fitness, right? We talk about nutrition, we talk about mental wellness, we talk about all these things, and it is 3 20-minute sessions a week, as I just said to you. Um, but what I would say is they have to pay to enter, but at the end of the course, if any of them are not happy, I'll
mhm.
give them their money back. I mean, I can't say it fairer than that, but that's how
Confident you are.
how
Yeah.
confident I am that
Don't make a difference.
everyone, they have to do the sessions.
Yeah.
They can't just enter the course and then not do the sessions. But I can guarantee you, every single person who does the course comes out of it feeling better.
Yeah.
And that's how confident I am. I'd be honestly, and I'm doing it because obviously I'm benefiting. I'm not saying it like that, but I can guarantee I'm so confident that they will benefit
Yeah.
that I would give I promise every single person who comes to me from a dog training or obedience background who listen to this podcast, if they sign up to do that course and at the end of the course they aren't happy, I'll give them their money back.
And then, like you say, I think the thing to stress is, and I'm sure that people are picking it up, that I don't believe that your intention and your purpose for what you do is solely based on monetary gains. There's no shame in saying it, that you
No.
obviously, this is all your job. There's no shame in saying it, but that's not the impression I get of you. And that's certainly not the impression I get within your community, that you're looking to, get people's, that's not your agenda. That's not what comes across in, I mean, I've been in Kurt's Academy for a long time, and seen how he treats people, seen how he supports people, seen how he lifts people up. that is definitely not his agenda. So I just want to just hopefully people will take him up on that offer.
Yeah, no, I get how that can come across sometimes, that then what I'm saying is like a sales pitch. But what I will say to you is I've turned a lot of people away that I felt weren't right. Um, and it's the money is obviously, it's my job, right? So it's part, I earn money from it. I'm not going to say it like as if I'm some kind of saint and I'm doing it for free. But the reason that I have been fortunate enough to build such a community is because people know that I care.
Yeah, yeah,
Any single person who messages me, I literally deal with them. And I have to laugh about this because my wife goes mental, but like, I like to think that I know everyone in the academy on a personal basis. And if someone asks for help, I think of it as a personal request.
yeah,
It's not messaging Karma Fitness, it's
yeah,
messaging me. And I will get back to them literally as soon as I can. I'll be out for a meal with my family
yeah.
and someone will message and I'm like, oh, so and so's message. I got to message them back. And Amy's like, oh, come on, we're out for, and I'm like, and she gets it. She knows that like for me it's more than like just a business. I am passionate about it, and like I know you know that, but I hope it does come
Definitely, and
across that that's
no, that's the thing I think absolutely comes across from you, Kurt. I think is your passion is your passion for wellness and health, and the reason behind it, because I think you genuinely do care for people, and that's what definitely comes across in your community. So one thing that you mentioned earlier, and I think you spoke on it might have been on your podcast, or I'm not quite sure, but I heard you talk to a point which I just wanted you to elaborate on, where you had spoken to, I believe it was a sports psychologist who was, I think it was the Welsh team, the rugby team,
yeah,
and we talked about how our brain is the lizard brain versus that our lizard brain is programmed, or we have a history as a species to look for comfort, which you've mentioned earlier, and fear. Fear is a big thing. Fear has actually been beneficial to us because it's kept us. And I always reference this, bastardize it from your version, but it was such a really a fantastic point, because I think often people see their anxiety and see their apprehension about being fitter, about committing to doing something, about as that they're a bad person, they're a lesser person. And the irony is actually we are all hardwired to think like that, and we have to almost make a conscious effort to undo that programmed thinking. But it was along those lines. But could you just tell us if you remember? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you remember?
yeah. I didn't realize I'd spoken about that on a podcast, to be honest. But yeah, I was fortunate enough to work with someone who is like high up in the Welsh rugby team with regards to sports psychology. And yeah, he helped, to be honest, because he was interested in getting involved because the research that is done with human psychology, a lot of it is done on animals first, because ultimately we're animals, right? And our brain has evolved from that place of survival. It's a survival mechanism to, like you say, search for comfort and try and find these things that are not going to challenge us. And that's what we've kind of got to fight against. So what was the actual bit that you wanted specifically
So
to?
just of what the learning points for me, because my interpretation is that those innate feelings that we feel like just to remain in our comfort zone, to be apprehensive of change, to fear things, the unknown, are all almost human characteristics that have served us for a huge period of time. So when you feel yourself being apprehensive about taking on a challenge, starting exercise, etc., to recognize that they're actually really normal responses, and it's then to, what's the phrase, to feel the fear and do it anyway, I think is the phrase that's used. But it was just your slant on that, or what was, because obviously it resonated with you because you spoke on it. So what was it that you resonated with so much, and why was that like such a light bulb moment for you?
You basically you said what it was. Essentially, what you're saying is like exactly what he said. And like I was fortunate after a couple of sessions with him. What I liked about it was the understanding side of things. I've got that brain that I need to understand why I'm doing
Mhm.
these,
Yeah.
things that you subconsciously do. I think being able to understand why these mechanisms are in place or these processes, It's fascinating to me.
It's fascinating.
Um, the other thing that he said that I thought was really interesting, and again, I don't like to overuse the word fascinating, but it was fascinating to me. As I said, one of the and this might be useful for some people. I don't know if it's the same in obedience. Is like, why is there that nervousness of competition? Why do we get nervous? What is there in it for us from an evolutionary standpoint? Because obviously it's subconscious and is part of the limbic. Yeah, it would be part of the limbic system that would be like. So, and the way that he described it was when we were evolving as a species, some of the things that we needed to survive was shelter, food, and companionship or company or acceptance in the tribe, right? And it was really interesting the way that he explained it is like when you are competing, the reason that we are scared, not scared perhaps, but sometimes you definitely can be scared. The reasons that we have that anxiety or that worry about not performing is because it's that fear in the back of our mind, maybe not even consciously, of letting down the tribe, of then not being accepted into the tribe and being kicked out. And like from an evolutionary standpoint, that's game over. And it was just so many things that I thought of as like a modern day, I won't say process, I guess, a way of thinking, but really it just comes from the evolutionary background that we all evolved from. Um, yeah, it was. There's so many things I could talk about on
Yeah,
that
yeah,
because
because
it
I
was.
remember you speaking on it, and it really made me go. It was those things that I was aware of, but it was the way that you articulated it by this other person. It was really interesting. But it also, do you know what it does affirm, Kurt, is the need to belong to the right tribe. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
joining something like Karma Academy or the Karma Fitness Academy is so integral for overcoming those anxieties or reservations or reluctance that you have about whether it be competing or fitness or whatever, because it's all interlinked. It really is down to us believing and conditioning ourselves or making that conscious decision to go, I'm going to invest in myself because I'm even my 3 20-minute sessions that I'm going to do are going to make a difference in my well-being, and that's going to help my mental health. That's going to help me feel better about myself, feel confident, not even from a physical standpoint, but from an achievement standpoint. The fact that you've gone, right, I've done my 3 20-minute sessions, that in itself is going to create that dopamine hit, which is going to make
yeah.
you feel better about yourself. And we know that, again, the studies have shown that exercise can contribute to that entity as well. There's so many things that can come from just taking that step and being invested in yourself. So is there any sort of final points that you want to just say to people that are on the fence that go, I'm not quite sure whether this is for me? What would you say to somebody listening?
You need to do it. You need to stop thinking about it and you need to just do it for yourself. Do something today that will serve you tomorrow. That was a quote I heard from someone, and you are worth it. It's easy for us to want to do things for other people all the time. You need to do stuff for yourself now and again as well. And you spoke about it earlier in the sense that you see it as a meditation, and it is, because whether it be doing a mindless activity like running on a treadmill or whether it be doing a complex one,
Mhm.
but if you are in that moment and you are having to think about only that, and it gets you away from all the other things in life that can be stressful, like taxes. God
Yeah.
knows we all hate taxes. And, it is that moment of each day that is for you. And giving yourself that is one of the best gifts that you can give yourself, because it's like I say, it's not easy. It's not it's not something that should be. I don't want it to sound like I'm saying, oh, don't be stupid, just get and do it. I get it. I honestly, I get it. All I'm saying is you can do it and you are worth doing it for. It's not too late. You're not too unfit. Everyone can do something. And if you can just go into it with that mind frame of, okay, I'm going to turn up today, I'm going to do what I can. I promise that if you do that consistently, then in a really short period of time, you're going to feel mentally and physically markedly different. is gonna be a huge difference.
That's what I would say. So, just to sort of bring this thing to a close, and just to sort of articulate a couple of points. Those of you that are listening that don't necessarily do agility, and I would obviously, most of you probably are aware of Kurt in the agility world, but those of you that don't, whether you do obedience or IGP or Heal It to Music or Rally-O, this is not about you suddenly becoming Usain Bolt or an
Yeah.
elite sprinter. This is about you investing in yourself, because the benefits of physical exercise into your well-being, both physically, emotionally, and mentally, is what is going to make the change for you to live your best life and ultimately be the best version of yourself. And that's what I think this conversation was really about. It isn't about saying you all need to run around agility in like trousers, Solomon shoes with a hat on. No, that's uniquely agility. But if you don't do agility and you just want to help yourself to be the best version of yourself, those of you that have had struggles with anxiety or self-worth or depression, the science has shown that exercise is an integral part of working through and overcoming those things, in conjunction with lots of other things, but it definitely can help. And that's why I hope this conversation has brought to the fore. So for those people that are interested, Kurt, how can they reach out to you? How can they connect to you? And how can they access your stuff?
So again, just to show that it's not about the money for me, is I never open any links. You can't just click and sign up. I want to speak to everyone first, because I want to get to know people, and then that will be the best way that I can know what will serve them for what they want. So the best way that they can get involved, if they want to get involved, is to send me a message. On Facebook, it's Chris Kerton, Kerton, or we've got a Facebook page as well, Karma Fitness, Karma Fitness. And yeah, whilst I do mostly train agility people now, the work that we do on there is suited for everyday life, just to feel better, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, excellent. On that note, thank you very much for your time. Finally, I just want to say, wish you the best at the World Champs, which are imminent. Are they?
Yeah, we're leaving tomorrow. Leaving tomorrow.
Oh my gosh! All right. Well, thank you for slotting and making time for this conversation. Reach out to Kurt if you are interested in finding out what he does and working out for and working with him, I should say. For those of you that like this podcast, just click like and subscribe to never miss another episode of Lifting All Ships. From me, from Kurt, take care, enjoy, and make sure that you're investing in yourself.
Cheers, everyone.